I'm Jonny Smith.
I'm Richard Porter.
And this is Smith and Sniff, a podcast in which two friends talk about cars and other stuff.
I can't believe you got that right.
Yeah, I've been on it today. Live streaming, green screen shizzle. I've been taking the corporate coin today, which does sound like an innuendo, but it's not.
I should explain to people that may have noticed, probably don't know or care, but we always open this podcast with me first, and I say my name, you say your name, and then I do the little blah 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 about we're two friends who talk about cars.
You do,
and part of the reason for that is because I do the editing, and
there's a very specific.
Well, it's not that. It's just you're not trusted with doing that opening because there's a very specific gap before the music gets a little bit louder and then starts to fade out. And whenever you do it, you always do it too long and it crashes into the bit where the music gets louder. And I said that this week you should do it, assuming you would still crash into the music and we just make a feature of it. And look at you, you actually didn't. So
well, do you want me to? No, if you want me to, it's because I'm the scriptwriter's antichrist because I just can't stick to a script. I'm terrible at it. I have to always add in extra words, descriptives, dilly-dally. I'm Jonny Smith. Welcome to Smith and Sniff, a podcast in which two people talk about vehicles and then we just go off. We talk about vehicle-related issues, guilty pleasures, bad music, awful European hair, hotel rooms, gout. We talk about...
This is what it's normally like.
Tyre shakes, scuttle wobble.
Stop. You're just all over... Oh, the music's faded out again.
Emergency diets. Specialist fuels.
Anyway, I know what I was going to... bring up this week.
What were you going to bring up?
It just occurred to me the other day. You know that game that people play?
Frogger.
It's a sort of Frogger.
I just thought I'd think of a game.
There's that. It's sort of a drinking game. I don't think it's a drinking game. It's a party game called I Have Never.
Oh yeah, I used to play that quite a lot when I used to go out drinking.
Yeah. So the rules are, you sort of whoever's turn it's to play, they say I have never, and it'll be like, I have never accidentally drunk shampoo, and everybody who could not say that, i.e. they have accidentally drunk shampoo, has to stand up or drink or whatever it is.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm using that as an example because I have accidentally
Have you?
Well, not drunk.
Is that the early days of the Body Shop when everything smelt so nice that you just had to give it a quick taste? It is, isn't it?
When I lived in a shared house and there was a kind of girls' bathroom because basically the women in the house went, look, we don't want you coming and doing your disgusting boy shits in our bathroom.
Men are dogs.
So we sort of agreed there was a girls' bathroom and a boys' bathroom.
Boy shits.
Well, you know what I mean.
Do you know what? They were a really successful Euro. They were really successful. What's the name of the... Oh, sorry. Euro... What's that awful contest?
Eurovision Song Contest.
Eurovision. As I kept wanting to say Eurovision. Yeah, they were massive.
The boy shits.
Boy shits. They were German. No, they're Austrian.
Shits with a Z.
Yeah, okay.
Boy shits. Super sexy, Liebe ist heiße. Where was
Ich liebe dich. Maybe you do, pal, but don't come near me. All right, with your foreign muck.
Anyway, I used to sneak into the girls' bathroom sometimes. Usually I got in drunk to have a wee because it was nearer when you got in the front door.
Sit down where you...
And there was a little shelf by the loo that had smellies on it. And there was this sort of vanilla... It wasn't shampoo, actually. I think it was bath foam. Vanilla bath foam, and every time I stood there having a wee, I would take the vanilla bath foam and just have a little sniff of it because it smelled amazing. It smelled like the best custard you'd ever smelt. Amazing vanilla smell. And then one day I think I was so drunk that I thought, well, if it smells this good, it must taste this good. So I tasted it, and it didn't. It tasted of soap. Funny that.
You're like my brother when we were kids. I remember him sneaking into the understairs cupboard, which was Mum's kind of pantry, I suppose, and he found the bag or box or tub of cocoa powder. And he thought, well, I've seen Mum making some amazing chocolate cakes with that, so it must be really chocolatey. But my brother went in with a tablespoon and he put a whole tablespoon in his mouth of cocoa. His face was a picture. Honestly, it just puckered right up, and it was instantly very dry. Never did it again. Never did it again. Surprisingly. Yeah.
You sort of, when you do that, because I have done that, I've done it with hot chocolate powder more than once, actually, because I quite like it. Not recently, certainly not the last month, but if you do get it wrong and you inhale a little bit as you put it in your mouth, you do get that faint moment where you think, oh my god, I'm asphyxiating. I can't.
Oh, and then do you puff out a bit of soot?
Yes.
It's a bit like starting up a very old car next to a white walled garage, and you get a big plume, don't you, that just smacks onto the wall.
Which is, you can always tell people who back their cars into up against a wall, and you get a smutsy wall after a while.
And probably because there's close proximity to the wall to exhaust ratio, you get a bit of a sound of like a trombone sound when you first start it up the next day. unless it's a Morris Minor, in which case it just makes a trombone sound all the time. I couldn't own a Morris Minor on the basis the exhaust is just such an awful sound.
Do you not like the sound of a Morris Minor harumph figure?
No, I don't like it. I really don't like it. It irritates me. No, it's like a stupid Jim Henson puppet making a stupid sound.
You like Beatles, where it constantly sounds like someone's following you around with a tambourine. I mean, I
love the Beetle sound. It's friendly. It does. It sounds like that little man from the Monkees. What was his name?
Davy Jones.
It's like having Davy Jones just perched on the back bumper, being really smiley and successful a British person in America in the 60s.
That's failing to pipe enough heat into the cabin.
Yes, fundamentally, exactly.
As Davy Jones would probably.
Davy Jones could never
struggle.
pipe the heat, unfortunately. Yeah, it's a real shame.
Anyway, I have never game.
Oh yeah.
I suddenly thought of it the other day because I thought you could play it with cars, and you could just play it with makes of car, because I have never owned any kind of BMW, and I sort of thought, for someone who's into cars, it feels like an oversight. Like, I had to really think
like you
hard.
Should have.
Because they make a lot of really
great
cars that are very nice to drive over the years. They've turned out, but there's not even like a ratty 318i in my back catalogue. I've never had an M car, and I've never had any kind of like a 7 Series or something as a cheapo barge. I just haven't. I've never owned a BMW. Have you not either?
I've owned one BMW, and I owned it for less than 48 hours. Not because I didn't like it, because I bought it to just make a quick buck on. And it was a 318 E30 Estate, so Tourer.
Oh, okay.
In red. And red's not a great BMW colour, I'm afraid. It just isn't.
No.
So, but that's the only BMW. There's a BMW. There's a couple of BMWs I do really like, and I feel like maybe one day, Richard, when we're wildly successful with this podcast, and the money is just cascading in like a water feature in a chintzy hotel, I think I might dive deep on a E46 M3 if you want to go full jingle, or on a lesser jingle scale. Very much like the idea of is it the 2002 Touring?
Yeah,
which was the much less popular one.
Was it less
the sort
popular?
of hatchback?
I suppose so. Yeah. I guess you don't really see them around, do you? And it's funny because 2002s have their own sort of following. That's the closest. I think that's the closest I've come to buying an old BMW. I think I've mentioned this before. I can never remember things I've mentioned on the podcast versus things I've just told you in real life. But
well, we've done a lot of videos together. We've done like 110 videos together, talking utter horseshit most of the time.
Anyway, I'll recap this quickly, but I almost bought a 2002. I mean, as in I was looking around. It was when I was working... where was I working? It doesn't really matter, except that I was working briefly with Quentin It wasn't Top Gear. I was doing something else with Quentin, and I remember mentioning it to him just casually, going, I was sort of thinking of getting an old BMW 2002, and he went, oh, sweet, sweet car, Richard, you won't lose on it, they're going up. And he was right, they were, so I should have bought one. But the weird thing was, this is almost like a message from the gods. I was seriously looking around trying to find, more information about them, do my homework, and then go and buy one. And one day I was on the M1 going home back to London, and it was a pissing wet evening, and on the hard shoulder with its hazards weakly flashing was a 2002, and I suddenly thought, and I was in my modern reliable waterproof car, and I suddenly thought, shit, no, because I was doing quite a lot of miles at that point, and I thought, oh dear, yeah, don't.
Would you have daily driven it?
Yeah, couldn't really afford to justify two cars, so I was going to sell my modern car to buy the usable everyday classic, but they never are they? There's always something wrong. So yeah,
some are. So it depends what you regard as a classic. I mean, I'd love to. What if you had a BMW 2-car garage? What would you do?
Two BMWs.
Yeah, two BMWs. Ooh. Maybe you could go for an older one and maybe a slightly newer one, or you could just go too old, or you could go too new. The world is your oyster, Richard.
Oh man, that's hard then, isn't it? Because you're right.
The world is your propeller-shaped logo.
You see, I would have to give serious thought to an E46 M3 as well, in a nice spec brilliant. That's not been abused. Which I grant you, might as well go to the hen dentist and ask if they've pulled any teeth recently. But they might be out there. I'm sure they're out there somewhere.
They are. And I wouldn't want a CSL because the gearbox is horrible.
Is it? Oh,
it's awful.
I've never driven one.
It's awful.
Didn't know that.
It ages it terribly. Same as the M5, the V10 M5.
Oh yeah, they're cack, aren't they? The gearboxes on those. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have driven a manual M5, the American spec one.
Have you?
Yeah, and it was stunning.
How'd you do that?
They had one in Norway at a show called Gatbill. And they used it as their track taxi at one of these big events they do. And it was like a drift taxi. And we were filming for Fifth Gear, and they gave it to me pretty much for the whole day with unlimited tyres. And I entered a drift contest with it, and I don't think I came last. But I did all right. So I've got some seat time, as they say, with a V10 manual M5, and it was really good. In fact, if I owned one, I would convert it to manual instantly.
Yeah. Do people do that?
I think some people do, but I think there's bigger issues with the V10 M5. Like, forget the gearbox, mate. Look at the rest of the car.
Yeah, they don't have a great rep, do they? I realised when you said you were in Norway that Track Taxi could have been the car they used to get around the track, but Track Taxi also sounds like a bloke who lent you the car in the first place. Hello, I am Track Taxi.
Oh yes, is it? It's got a little accent above the A. So Track Taxi.
Track Taxi.
It's something. It's not a great accent. It's late in the day for me. So I have, but I would very much like a very nearly bought before a BMW Isetta bubble car, the car that saved BMW's arse, which people do forget about, and because I think they're just charming, and I would very much like an E34 540i.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a dirty engine in a tasteful double tailgate car. I think it's my favourite looking 5.
I think I like those 5 Series, but it's a BMW. I think I'd have to stick with a straight 6 though.
Yeah, I know what you mean. In the back of my head,
they make a lovely noise of that era, don't they? That's sort of metallic, bassy noise. It's good.
It is a really metallic noise. You're right.
Try this on for size. I think I've got my E46 M3 in my double BMW Garage.
Jingle, yeah.
You know what's next to it? A Z1.
Oh, you filth master! Really?
I've never driven one.
No, actually, I've never driven one.
I've always liked them. There was one up for sale not that long ago that was the former car of Bernard Sumner, lead singer of New Order, and
he had an M1, not an M1, a Z1.
He had a Z1 for years. I used to see him around in it occasionally because he lived in the town where I grew up for a bit, or still does, I can't remember, and or nearby. He had a green one, and it was up for sale, and it was all legit, and it had his name on the V5 and all sorts, and I was like, oh
no, but
as a New Order fan and a BMW Z1 fan, that seems like there's a little sliver of the middle of a Venn diagram there. People who like New Order, people who like BMW Z1s, and in the middle is Bernard Sumner's fucking BMW Z1. I mean, that's a one of one, and I couldn't justify buying
one
it.
One day it might end up swinging into your hands. You just don't know. You just don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I care about the Z1. I'm afraid. But,
really?
Yeah, I just find it too awkward to look at. It's not actually very fast.
Fugly, isn't it? And I know they're not meant to be that fast, although people do sort of do. You could get ones with you could have a Hartke tuned one, couldn't you?
Yes, Hartke.
Hello, I am Hartke tuned. This is my friend Trek Taxi.
They're a lovely couple, Yeah, really lovely couple.
Good guys. Good guys.
Sweet guys.
Sweet guys.
Sweet
guys. I'm just... I feel like I'm missing something else. But there's this thing. There's loads of nice BMWs.
There's loads of life. We just haven't... there's no rhyme or reason why. I've just owned a lot more Mercedes than BMWs. And I know it always feels a bit like Crips and Bloods when you talk about Mercs and BMs. Or historically you do. And it's not like that at all. It's not, is it?
You can have both if you want. No one's going to knife you or do a funny clicky dance in front of you. Well, they might, but it's just...
Well, actually, do you know what? I have a fond spot for the... how many generations ago would it have been? Just the previous generation, so 5 years ago, the C63 AMG... in both saloon and estate form, because I remember I liked it anyway, but that was the car that I had to drive when I was auditioning for Top Gear.
Was it?
Yeah, which I've never actually talked about. Yeah, I had to drive it and talk about it, go around the Top Gear track and drift it and not crash and talk to the camera.
Did they provide it?
They did. I believe Mercedes UK provided 3 or 4 of them, and I also believe, Richard, that one of them might have got heavily damaged during the auditioning process. And I'm going to leave that there. Well, I know, but I'm not saying a damn thing.
Go on, give us a clue.
No, I can't. Listen, we know people. Come on, you know the exec producer from Top Gear.
I do, but he's a very professional man, and he probably would tell me now.
Well, I'm also he's massively professional, and I'm going to try and be. But yes,
this would have been when Chris Evans announced he was doing the show, and then put a shout out for auditionees. Was it that round of audition?
Yes, it was when he said, I'm looking for presenters. You've got to send a video in, and it cannot be more than 30 seconds. If it's a second more than 30 seconds, I won't consider it. That's what he said. And I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose, and bollocks, I'll do it. So I think I've still got them on an old phone. I recorded about 10 versions. Sat in front of my little Enfield race car, and emailed it and got into the process. Got a call back, and ended up going for an audition, which got cancelled, and then it got reinstated. And I never ended up doing a chemistry. I was booked to do a chemistry test with Chris Evans after my first audition. And the first audition was...
For people who are not familiar with this term, used quite a lot in the television and film industry, it doesn't mean that you've got to go into a laboratory with some potassium permanganate and or a magnesium ribbon and a Bunsen burner, do a few experiments. Although you could do that, I suppose. Yeah, a chemistry test as in, to see how well you get on with your on-screen potential co-stars.
Yeah.
So you were supposed to do one of those with Chris Evans, but you didn't.
No, it didn't end up happening. I did the audition where I had to go around the Top Gear track in the AMG and talk to camera. Then I had to go into the studio and introduce fictitious items whilst walking around from place to place. That I felt the weight of that, because it was weird being in the Top Gear studio because I'd never been in it before. Sure,
you
you've
not?
been in it 100 times. No, I've never been in it in my life. So I was in there, and it was completely empty apart from a couple of camera people. And did that, met some of the rest of the crew, and then after the no chemistry test with thingy, then nothing. Top Gear started, and then they wanted me to audition a second time to be the host of Extra Gear.
Oh, yes.
When Rory was doing the main show more of the time, and Extra Gear was kind of up for grabs.
Oh.
Yeah, it was weird. So I had to go back and do another audition, but this time it was with Chris Harris and Rory in the studio, and had to introduce an item and then have a chin wag with the two guys. I have to say, I was nervous as can be, so I really felt for people that have never done it before, never done any form of TV, but I absolutely soiled myself. Drove down in my Honda Insight. But yeah, ultimately they decided to use somebody else, and then actually Extra Gear doesn't even exist anymore. So
Weren't you a guest on Extra Gear though at some point?
I was a guest. Yes, I was a guest on Extra Gear. Yeah, I was. And what's weird is the producer of Top Gear. I remember when I got the call about auditioning, chemistry testing with Chris Evans, I was thinking, oh my gosh, that's going to be an absolute
don't even have my own safety specs or a lab coat. What am I going to do?
I was really shatting myself. So I actually, and I think it was going to be an early start, like, I don't know, 7:45 down at the Top Gear test track, and I live, I don't know, 150 miles away from the Top Gear test track. So I remember buying a can of a popular energy drink, which I don't normally do, and putting it in the fridge. Thought, I'll have that just before I go on set, and I'll be tingling and jumping and gurning. And because it never came to fruition, I still have the can of Red Bull in the back of the fridge, and I wrote on it in permanent marker. Top Gear audition energy drink, and I took a photo of it and I sent it to the producer, and I said, one day I'm going to drink this because you're going to want me. Yeah. I might have been drunk when I sent that. I'll have to ask. I'll check my sent items.
Who are you going to ask about being drunk?
Oh, no,
a can of Red Bull?
I'll just check the dates and see I might have had a little bit of quiet time with some Shiraz. I don't know.
So that audition process... quite a few people went through that, didn't they? That people we know.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it was a very weird time, and I've never actually talked about it.
No,
but fundamentally because I failed. I think that's the main reason why I haven't talked about it.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna look at it a slightly different way. That you dodged a bullet.
I feel I might have. Someone who lives with me and is very close to me said the same thing, and I think their own words were, "Thank fuck that you didn't get the job." But yeah, because you live and learn. I have to say though, I was one day I'm going to try and get hold of some of the audition footage, because I'm actually quite pleased with how I drove. I was so busy trying to concentrate on the words, talking about the C63 and the Top Gear track. But I actually managed to get some half-decent power slides out of that C63. So
did you?
Yeah, so one day I think I'm going to probably buy one of those, because I do like that era anyway. I think it's a cool car.
You can buy one, drive it home, and then sit in it and drink that can of Red Bull, and it's like, just close that chapter.
Yeah, maybe it's closure.
Safe in the knowledge that... really, no one came out of that series of Top Gear very well. And most people didn't come out of it with a job still on Top Gear. So, it was definitely a sort of a teething troubles series, and then it sort of sorted itself out.
Bedded in, eventually.
Once they'd got
rid of...
you're
absolutely right.
I mean, as it was once described to me, there was a major problem with that series, and then thankfully he left. So I think, you could have been caught in the fallout of that.
Yes.
And best not to be.
I think you're right. And that can, apparently, the can of energy drink that's still in my fridge, I'm pretty sure it'll probably sit there for several years and it'll taste exactly the same.
Oh, yeah. They have a half-life, those things, don't they?
Yeah. So I think I'll be just fine. And maybe that day when I do have that closure, you can come along.
Okay.
Did you like that?
Yeah. Okay. I will. Now,
I'm trying to think of I have never questions now.
Yeah, I have never's quite good, isn't it? Because I started thinking this just purely on sort of makes of car, and I was suddenly like, I don't think I've ever owned a VW.
What are you, some sort of prick? Come on this show, and you don't buy a BMW, and you don't buy a VW,
I bet
but you've bought Rovers, and you've bought.
Yeah, but you've never owned a Hispano Suiza, but I'm not going to make a big thing of it.
No, I haven't actually. It's amazing that, isn't it? But I've owned some pretty random cars.
Yeah. You ever owned a Skoda? Oh wait, hang on. Well.
Oh, Richard.
No, I just think because I haven't.
No, although my mate Pete at university was the only guy in our shared house who had a motor that he brought to uni, and he had a Skoda Favourite.
Oh, really?
Do you remember the? I haven't seen a Favourite for ages. And when I was going through some old photographs during lockdown, I found the pictures of my uni life. And there's a picture of me. I one day said to him, "Let's jazz it up a bit, Pete." And he's like quite receptive. He went, "Yeah, okay." And it was sort of faded red. And I went to it might have been a Halfords or a shop like that, and I got some like Shelby style racing stripe tape. And I gave it a pair of slightly off-centre racing stripes, and he really loved it. He probably sold the car with them on, or scrapped the car. I don't actually know what became of the car, but it was good. It was the only motor we had at uni. But no, have I owned a Skoda?
Well, what about a Lada? Have you ever owned a Lada?
No, although I got very close. I think I've said this on a previous video or cast. After testing the Neva. A few years back on Fifth Gear, when you could still buy the brand new older style one, I very, very nearly ordered one. Very nearly ordered one. My wife thinks they're ace. She really likes them. The ultimate deal breaker was it was going to be our family car, and you can only buy them in left-hand drive. And I got so close to making it happen that I actually nearly bought a donor right-hand drive one from the 80s or the early 90s that was rusty but complete, and then costing up the price of actually right-hand drive converting a brand new car using old right-hand drive bits. Bloody and then I punched myself in the balls and said, "What are you thinking? What are you? Stop it." And I didn't, and that was that. But I do regret not ordering one. They were like £9,500, including VAT. And I went through the options list, and it was a sensationally Soviet options list. I loved it. It was just brilliant.
One of the options was just hope.
Yeah. It was like
is not available.
Snowplow, like a massive snowplow, not just a small subtle one, like a huge one. And there was a rifle case which fitted.
Oh my god!
Yeah, but of course it was AK-47, and it fitted behind. Was it on the rear? Like there was a rear bulkhead kind of area. I'm trying to remember. It was brilliant, and I was going to order all of it because each one of them was about €80. I was like, bollocks! I'll have a snowplow for €80. It's a factory fit
because of the massive snowfall that you get where you live.
Oh yeah, we get in excess of 2 inches every other year.
Now, I've alluded a couple of times on the podcast recently to the fact I'm just putting the finishing touches in inverted commas to a second volume of my boring car trivia book. And one of the things that I got down a bit of a rabbit hole was I suddenly became inexplicably determined to find Britain's last new car that you could buy that still had a starting handle. And I'm pretty sure, as a result of my investigations, that the answer is Lada Niva.
Because the Niva came out in '79.
Yeah, and it still had. And if you look, I mean, on UK cars, it tends to be the hole through the bumper that then corresponds to the hole in the front panel.
That's right.
It tends to be obscured by the number plate, but it's crank. There. Yeah, and it's my belief, having looked into this a bit too much, that they only deleted the option to start it with a starting handle when the Niva got multi-point fuel injection in the mid-90s.
Mid-90s, yeah.
So if you'd have bought one of those recent left-hand drive ones, that wouldn't have had been able to be hand cranked into life. But until...
No. But factory fit LPG though.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, that was on the options list.
Oh.
And again, it cost about £18 extra to have it LPG'd.
I'll tell you another. Sorry, it's just reminded me of another good larder fact I only found out quite recently when I was working on this book. Is that theft was rife from cars as they were shipped from the Togliatti, isn't it? Togliatti? Sounds wrong now I'm saying it. Anyway, the larder factory in Russia, the Vaz factory, call it what you will. And they used to have to put desirable items such as the optional radio and wheel trims and other bits and pieces that people might want to filch for their own larders. They had to put them in the boot and then seal the boot with a little lead strap.
What?
Yeah, to stop, because if there was a train
wheel
load of
trims,
cars, wheel trim or anything that could be taken off that was.
I suppose Soviet era.
This is full Soviet era. This is the 70s, but then they introduced halogen headlights on some Vaz/larders, and of course, if there's a train load of ones with halogen lights in a shunting yard somewhere in the distant part of Russia, well, those halogen bulbs are like, hot property.
30 quid.
So they had to start sealing the headlights with little tamper strips to try and dissuade people from stealing halogen bulbs out of the headlights. Yeah,
they should have just been knocked down kits that we assemble in Dover.
Well, they did used to do a lot of work. The other story I heard, which I haven't put in my book, but it's quite a good one.
You've heard a lot of stories, Rich.
Yeah, I know. God, that's why I don't go to.
You should write a book.
Well, that's a good idea. What can I call it? Apparently the UK importer, because they used to come into was it Bridlington or somewhere up on the sort of Yorkshire coast. They used to bring them in there, and there was a centre. They would sort of half rebuild them to try and make them better made and also fit. Do you remember a lot of larders in the 80s used to have like side stripes and generic wheel trims in body colour stuff, and it was all things
sunroofs.
Awful sunroofs, very curved corners, aftermarket. Well, there's ones that tilted, but the slide wasn't a slide. You could take the whole thing out.
You just take it out and throw it in a nearby bin.
Yeah, well, it always felt like you could drop it and break it, and that was all the UK importer trying to create a model range out of nothing. So it's like, oh, this is the GLX. And it's like they're all the same when they come off the ship. You just have to gussy them up to different degrees in Bridlington. But one of the things they used to, apparently, they would know if the factory in Russia had refurbished the panel presses, because they'd suddenly get a batch of cars in and the doors would fit much better.
Really?
Well, because they were making so many that the presses would wear out quite quickly.
Yeah, of course.
And the panels would go a bit frilly. Well, they just go a bit inexact.
Yeah.
And then they would have the dies refurbed or new dies put in the presses, and suddenly you'd get much crisper door pressings, and then the doors would actually fit properly.
But they
would never bother to tell anyone.
I would much rather have an 80s Skoda than an 80s Lada.
Yeah, have you ever driven one?
Yes.
They're horrid, aren't they? They're really
and
horrible.
I couldn't go near an FSO.
No, God.
I just couldn't. I draw the line at that.
You've uncorked a torrent of shite, because this is another. In fact, I won't spoil it, but I've got some good FSO facts in my next book as well, if you're into that sort of thing.
I'm going to buy your next book.
Well, you can have it for free.
All right, I won't buy it.
But yeah, do you know the other weekend when we were at Goodwood and someone was showing us pictures of a larder they'd bought, and it was I was looking at it going, oh, that's quite cool, and then I suddenly remembered as I was walking away that they're absolutely disgusting to drive. They're just not amusing or pleasant at all. There's no delight to them whatsoever.
They are the sort of car which you just instantly put a drivetrain transplant in.
Yeah, yeah. Fiat Twin Cam's a good one, isn't it? Apparently,
totally.
Yeah,
totally.
Anyway, where were we? So I have never. No, I thought the I have never. You could go on because there's all this sort of you could do, but actually, it's also I started thinking about things like I have never dropped a tool into the engine bay of a car and it's never come out again. And actually, I have done that, so I'd have to stand up and drink. I think everyone's done that, though, haven't they?
Yeah, I've done that.
If we wonder where it's gone,
especially with an under tray, it's a world of pain.
Yeah,
if you don't take all the under trays off. We need a selection of suction and capture tools, which I've been accruing over the years.
I think I saw them at a drum and bass night in Birmingham in about '98. Suction and capture.
Yeah, they They were massive. Yeah, they were good.
Really good.
Yeah, Stretch and Vern. Good mates with Stretch and Vern. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, listen, guys.
Yes, guys.
Since you were in a bit of a reflective mood about your Top Gear audition, which, I'll be honest, I'd completely forgotten that you'd auditioned for Top Gear.
Oh, well, thank you.
But it was interesting to hear.
I have I actually got quite close to being a presenter on Top Gear.
No, I know you did, because our mutual friends, who is the producer of that show, did tell me that he'd got you on his shortlist, and that he really liked you. So
he's a nice. I have no idea how short his list was, but I'm just going to imagine it was exceptionally short, just a bolster.
It was just your name and then a question mark underneath,
and then a shopping list which said milk, bread, noodles, potatoes.
Hire Jonny Smith ? But no, I think I don't know what's worse to hear, that you got quite close or that you didn't get quite close. I don't know which one I'd want to know.
I don't know.
Either way,
I've grown stronger since, and I just put it down to the tapestry of life.
The rich,
lovely,
creamy tapestry of
life.
Yogurt.
I just enjoyed being part of it. It was interesting. Gained some friends,
like I
contacts.
said, I think you dodged a bullet. I really do. Yeah, I think you're better off away from what turned out to be a little bit of a car accident of a series for various reasons, because it could have had a negative effect on your career going forward. Also known as in the future. Yes. Yeah, it's funny how there is actually an easy and existing way of saying going forward that people seem to have forgotten. Anyway, what I was going to say is, since you're sort of in a slightly nostalgic mood talking about auditioning for Top Gear, I have opened up my little document of notes that I just keep in my phone of things that either we should talk about or things that you mentioned that I always think, I'm going to write that down and I'm going to ask Jonny about it next time we're recording, rather than... Because you do sometimes just casually refer to stories which I think you've already told me and you haven't. Now, there are two on this list that are, I think, particularly unedifying from the sounds of them. And I'm going to invite you to share just one of them. I think both might be too much for one show. So you can choose from, and I'll just read them out as I've noted them down, all right? Now, one of these you've mentioned on Twitter, so some people might be eagerly awaiting it. The other one, I don't believe you have, and it sounds even more repellent. They are written down as Johnny's Motorway Services glory hole story and spoon out poo. So which one would you go for? Do you want to tell us about...
I am absolutely certain I've told you both of these stories.
I think I'd remember them if you had. It feels like... Unless I've blotted them out. I might have blotted them out.
Right, let's go with the first one.
Okay.
Keele services. So it would have been about 1999, my first journalism job, on a Volkswagen magazine. I remember I was coming back from a shoot really late, and I think it was in further up than Manchester. Anyway, I was coming down the M6, got to Keele services, and I really desperately needed the toilet. And I had camera equipment in the car because I've been taking photos of a feature car, because I used to take pictures and write. And I was a bit paranoid about the car getting broken into, but there was a bit too much gear to take into the toilet. So I thought, I'm going to just do a super fast run in, have a waz, run out. Don't need a poo, so it's cool. Got out the car was a Mark II Golf Driver. I remember that was our sort of pull car. And ran into the gents' toilet, and this was about, let's say this was about 10 o'clock at night, 9:30 at night. Ran into the gents' toilet, and if you know, at motorway services there's a lot of urinals normally, and as usual there was a lot of urinals, but they were all full, as in there was somebody stood at each one. It was particularly busy, which I thought, that's a bit strange, but I was busting, so I just ran into the nearest cubicle, shut the door, and had one of those never-ending wheeze that just won't stop because I've been holding off for so long.
Yeah. Never ending. You're
in.
La, 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 la. Yeah.
So as I was doing that, and just the euphoria was kicking in, I noticed in the wall of the partition of the cubicle, there was a hole in it, but it had been stuffed with, I don't know, toilet roll. Didn't think anything of it because I was enjoying the euphoria. Just thought, I don't know, general. And there might have been some things drawn or written all over the walls. Usual story. And but as I was midway, I remember the toilet paper disappeared, and suddenly an empty toilet roll came through. A cardboard empty toilet roll. And it was there, and I was just.
Do you know what? If we were one of those true crime podcasts right now, we'd stop. There'd be some sort of lilting, slightly tense music. And
so I'm still
with a clock ticking, and then
we imagine. Let's just
say
say this is like a 1 minute week, and that's a long week, right? I mean, I have done a couple of 1 minuters in my time, but there's. So all this happens inside of a minute. I ignore it because I've got better things to do. Then the toilet roll disappears. Then a finger comes through and wiggles, and I just thought, this is just weird. I don't care. My wee's nearly over. And then before I can finish my wee, unfortunately, the finger is replaced by something else, and that's it. I cannot finish this wee quickly enough. I've got to wrap this up quickly, swiftly, without trying to get too much kind of splashback. When you can't, when you're on boost and you can't seem to come off boost very quickly, and you really need to. I was in an urgent situation where that was required.
How close? Like where
to me,
on the partition was the hole relative to sort of where you're standing and the loo? Like, was it by you rather than
it was
sort of
closer
by the
to me
system?
so it's really quite close to me.
Right.
And I was pretty shocked. Obviously, wasn't expecting to see a winkle coming through the partition, and I wrapped this up quickly. How old? I mean, I was only young as well. I was 20 years old, and in horror, I just ran so fast out of the toilets. Didn't wash my hands, I'm afraid. Sorry, I was a mucky pup. But there was another freaky part to this. Is I remember running out of the cubicle and looking back.
Just to be clear, you didn't say anything. E.g.,
I said nothing, and my brother, being my brother, when I told him the story, he just casually went, "You should have just taken your shoe off and battered it." And I went, "Well." And my brother would have just done that, and I'm like, but I just didn't even think to do that. I was tired. I'd been driving, and so anyway, as I ran out,
point. It's a very high risk strategy, poking your chap through into
massively.
An unseen hole. Because someone
completely.
Could whack it with a shoe, they could spray it with some deep heat, they could do all sorts to it.
You could flail it with a sharp watch strap. You could do many things. Could happen to it. A belt. Well, you could take your belt off and give it a good hiding.
Bloody hell!
Well, that's why you shouldn't stick your dingling through mysterious holes.
Have you got many more twee euphemisms for knob?
Yes, I've got a whole book in my downstairs toilet that I got given for Christmas about 20 years ago, and it's still good to this day.
Anyway, so you're running away from an
I'm running away, and I look
bell end. Yeah,
I look back, and the mysterious part of this, apart from the trauma, is that all of the people that were in there taking up the urinals had all gone. There was nobody else in there.
What?
And in the 1 minute that I was in there, I never heard anybody leave. Didn't hear any. It was just, and that's the bit that's since I go back and retread my steps in my mind. That's the bit that freaks me out more than seeing the winkle through the door.
That's really strange.
Yeah.
Maybe there were ghosts. Maybe everything was a ghost. Maybe
it was all the
ghost.
ghost.
Got approached by a ghost cock.
The thing my take home from that situation, and this is why I tell my wife, this is why to this day I still do it, is if I just need a wee and I'm solo in the car, I don't stop at motorway services. I do the hazard warning lights, side of the road, right in nice and tight, both doors open.
On the hard shoulder?
Yeah, I always do it. So if anyone can vouch for that, if they ever see me on the hard shoulder looking like I'm weeing, I'm definitely weeing on the hard shoulder.
Isn't that illegal?
I don't know. And do you know what? If it is, I just say, listen, mate, I've been glory holed and I really didn't want to be. And so if I am willing to I'm willing to take a telling off an official warning on the basis of that I just don't want to see another dick through a badly drilled hole in a wall, if that's all right. And anyway,
drilled. I wonder how it was drilled in the first place. I mean, you think that the noise would alert people to something going on, but
or it was chiseled over time.
Maybe scratched
with a very blunt knife stolen from KFC or something. I don't know. Don't know if you get.
I'd love it if you were having a wee on the verge by a motorway and you looked around at what you thought was a knot hole in a tree, and then a squirrel just poked its dick through it.
Oh, Rich.
Sorry.
So that's why, and for years I never went to Keele Services, and I don't want to put anyone off Keele Services because I think it's really up to its game lately.
I'll be honest, it's a shit services, isn't it?
I haven't been
for a while. Yeah, it's a bit shitty, and it's been rather dwarfed by some of the other ones. Stafford, for example. I'll tell you what, my top tip for having a WAS on the motorway is fully legal, but rather than going to the main services, just loop round and go to the petrol station. There's always a loo in there, and it's usually quite quiet.
But the problem with that is it's often used by people that simply don't watch where they're pointing their urine.
I would say that would extend to all services.
Yeah, but
it's something about travel on arterial roads that causes people to get really, really quite scattergun with the.
It's horrific. It's horrific.
Well, we have ended up on an absolutely delightful topic.
I'm not telling you the other story. The other story is for another day. I feel
we'll keep it because it could be too much. But we should probably wrap this one up.
Should we? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I was just coming on cam.
But I did want to say that we've had lots of nice emails and things from people, so I'm sort of a mind to give out the email address again. I know I didn't last week, but screw it. So it's Smith and Sniff, all in words, at gmail.com. Do get in touch, or also you can leave remarks on the comments under the YouTube versions of this podcast, which is just audio. There's nothing else, but people seem to still listen on YouTube, and there's a comment section there where you can get in touch with us on Twitter. Jonny is at Car Pervert. I'm at Sniff Petrol on Twitter. Because I was going to say, if you've got a car, I have nevers.
That would be good, actually.
That might be quite interesting / amusing. Also, if you've got any stories about encounters that you'd rather not have had at Keele Services, I mean, it's all grist to the mill. Maybe you could form a support group. I
remember having a really, really dangerous poo once on a very remote motorway services in Germany. And I was in a brand new Rolls Royce Phantom at the time, and I remember going in it, and the cubicle looked like the one from Trainspotting, but with loads of swastikas and
oh my God.
and genitals drawn on the wall in quite a lot of detail. And it was one of those ones where I was desperate to go, and it was a number 2, and it was like I just didn't want to do this. But I also felt like someone was going to come in and attack me because they knew I had a Rolls Phantom. This is all a very stressful situation, and not one I want to repeat.
No.
Yeah.
But no unsolicited peni.
Didn't see anyone else's phallus, which is great, and there was some toilet roll, which was also great.
Yeah, that's always a plus.
And the Phantom hadn't had anything drawn on it, or we hadn't had the wheels stolen, or anything like that. So yeah, all in all, not as bad as it could have been.
Hey, well, again, I mean, do feel free. Actually, don't email in if you've got stories of stressful road defecation. That's probably not something we're going to read out. We were happy when we just had the whimsical tales.
I think we might tumble down the charts if we stoop too low.
I do. Yeah, we already got. I felt like there was a slight sort of flagging within certainly the YouTube version of this, because idiotically I put the word nipple in the title a few weeks ago when we were talking about Plato's peephole shirt. They don't like slightly saucy words.
Did they say please don't do that again? You get a bit of a warning.
It said that you because we started putting ads on the front of the back of the thing, and it said your ads have been restricted because some content may not be suitable for all advertisers. And I was thinking,
gosh.
what would that be? Because we swear every week. Shit, balls, fuck, wank, etc.
I think you might have explained why, unfortunately, we don't make any money from this podcast.
Because one of our shows was called Jason Plato's Nipple T-shirt.
Visible
or
nipple.
Something. Visible Nipple, that's it, yeah. Can't remember the name of it.
Completely.
We'll get the hang of this one day. Oh, that's the other thing I was going to say, actually. Usually at this point I go, oh, please like and subscribe, and obviously those two things are still valid requests. But also, we always forget to say, if you're interested in sponsoring this show and you don't mind swearing and stories about Jonny seeing a stranger's bell in Keele services, if you feel that's on brand for your product, and I'm sure it probably is for some, or indeed if you are Keele services and you want to get more visibility,
I'd love to get sponsored by our services.
That would be
brilliant.
Amazing. No, but that really nice one in Cumbria, that would be my benchmark.
Yeah, that'd be
I can't remember
excellent.
the name of it, but the really, really nice one with
We
cake.
could get sponsored by some driving related food, road food.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say something then, but I was going to actually betray a confidence. I was going to say I was asked if I would write some stuff for a pitch for a product. Nothing to do with this show, just it's just some copyright.
Did you forget that we're actually recording a podcast?
I did, yeah. I was just going to tell you something from real life that I can't say in public because but it was for a product that is for me used to be classic car food.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I hope you told them that.
Well, I went, oh, I like that. And I think they were a bit surprised. I went, well, I used to eat a lot of it. Then I realised it's quite bad for you. Anyway.
And that's why you look like Jimmy White, the former snooker player. He looks like...
He's my spirit animal.
Jimmy White's my spirit animal. That's totally a bumper sticker.
Well, one for the merch, one for the mythical merch collection. All right. Well, anyway, thank you very much for listening. We hope that you've made it this far. Sorry about all the slightly off-putting stories. We'll try not to do them again next week, where we will see you same time, same place. Until then, thanks very much. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening.
Unsolicited bell end.